Hi everyone, welcome back to our second video. I'm making a rich mix of Sodalite Genuine, which is a Daniel Smith colour. I'm going to put that on and just let it run. So I'm tilting the board, adding a bit more liquid. And it's following its natural track with me just adjusting it a little and adding a little bit more liquid as I need to. Now I'm just going to tilt the board sideways. Mop up this little bit at the top. You can see it just puddling at the sides, and I'm just encouraging it to run, taking its own path. Sometimes if there's a little crease, you need to actually just help it over the crease to enable it to run where you want it to. See, just there, it managed to go over by itself. Take that right to the edge of the page by just adding a little bit more colour and allowing it to just run on its own. It gives for a much more natural look than you trying to paint it. I'm just allowing those runs to happen. I'm even going to just add a spray. And that will just disperse the paint a little bit more. See, just happening here. Okay, so I'm going to change the colour now. I'm going to add some quinacridone deep gold. This is a transparent colour. I used it in the background too. I'm just adding that to what I previously did. Again, just allowing it to run. Now I want it to run the other way too. So let's do that. I'm just going to tip. So we'll add a little bit of that Sodalite Genuine down here. I'm just going to add a little bit of water just to help that run. Now the quinacridone gold. Okay, just going to take my tissue now and just lift out some little runs that I don't want to happen. You've got plenty of time to do that because it's quite wet. I want to darken it up a little bit, so I'm going to this time add some phthalo turquoise, another lovely transparent colour. Just little touches of it here and there. Just let that run down while it's at the bottom here. Just encourage it on its way. Make sure you're fully in screen there this time. Just adding that to some of the branches, encouraging it down in this bottom sort of root area. A little bit of water. Now see how blue the phthalo turquoise is there, because that is the only colour that I've put on there. So I'm going to, down at this bottom area, so I'm going to add a little bit of that, excuse me, quinacridone gold. I'm also going to just add some more touches of the quinacridone gold here and there, just to give me some variation. Looking beautiful. A little bit of spray down the bottom. I'm just spraying it with plain water. Just tipping it a little bit to get some nice runs happening. I really want these to look like roots, so I'm encouraging these little runoffs. Okay, how's that looking? I think it's looking pretty good. Let's go on to number 2. I'll do one more for you, and then I'll pause the camera and come back to you. So Sodalite Genuine again. Now I'll just show you another way of encouraging the colour to run where you want it to. I actually want this to run a little bit up this way, so I'm just going to use some plain water. Okay, back on with the Sodalite Genuine. And see how it's taking the track of where the water is. Now, occasionally it may meet a crossways crease. If that happens, do what I told you to do before. Just help it over the crease a little bit. This is still Sodalite Genuine I'm using. I might put another one just in here. And again, I'll use some water. Oops, that brush wasn't very clean. Just clean that up a little bit. So the Sodalite Genuine again. Now, if you don't have Sodalite Genuine, I would probably use just a really dark mixture of, say, burnt sienna or burnt umber mixed with some ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is a lovely granulating colour. Burnt umber's granulating too. Even a sepia would work. I'm going to encourage some Sideway branches now. A little bit of water. Quite often a little tap or a little shake will help it on its way. I don't want it to be too straight. Just darkening up that a little bit. I like to make sure too that the trees are a little bit thicker down the bottom and get a little bit skinnier as they go up. I still want to encourage some more side branches. There's some lovely texture in this area here. So let's see what that does. So I love it when it just bleeds into those textured areas. We need a couple of branches off this one here. Okay, let's go now with the quinacridone gold. It's running along beautifully. And a little bit of the phthalo turquoise too. Just here and there. Just encouraging again to have some little roots happening to these trees. The quinacridone gold. There is another colour that I like to use, and that is called a transparent Pyro orange. These are all Daniel Smith's colours, if I haven't mentioned that before. Okay, back with some tissue. Just going to lift a little bit here and there. I'm just going to add a touch of that Pyro orange, which is this one here. You can see how much redder it is. and just add a little bit to this forward tree. And just letting that run up and do its thing. A little bit of water. And then we'll go the other way. We'll just tip it the other way. Just letting it run down into this area here. Tipping. You've got to remember, if you're looking at one area, keep an eye on another area just to see what it's doing. Okay, we'll just do a close-up. I'll get the phone off the stand here and just show you some close-ups before I turn the camera off and I allow it to dry. Now, as it's drying, excuse me, it'll sink into those little areas where there's the texture from the tissue paper. And it will continue to granulate. See those beautiful, beautiful textures. Lovely granulations in here. So we'll just let that dry off, and I will come back to you very soon. Okay, we're all dry. This is where we're up to. I just wanted to show you this one. This was done, obviously it's monotone, and it was just done with a colour that I purchased a couple of months ago called Moonstone. It's a Daniel Smith colour. So I just made up a few different tones of it so that I've got some lighter tones in the distance and some darker tones in the foreground. Done in exactly the same technique that I've just been using previously. You can see all the texture of the tissue paper underneath. Makes for a really interesting painting. Hi everybody. So let's carry on and do some work in the foreground. I just want to add a little bit more interest in this area around here. Around the roots, just adding some clear water back in with the Sodalite Genuine, making a nice rich mix and just touching, letting it run. I just really want to create some undergrowth. Quinacridone Gold. Just being really random with putting these colours on, because I'm going to use some Glad wrap on it. Just want to make that a little bit darker. I'm just going to add a little bit of indigo. Just in a few spots. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is use some Glad wrap, which is like a plastic lunch wrap. I'm going to put that on and just squish it around with my fingers a little bit. I want to pull it this way to get some creases happening, to give me a feeling of grasses and just some twigs and branches happening. Now while that's just doing its bit, I just want to show you some other things that you can do to make the trees look more 3D. And I'm going to just use my round brush, and I'm going to mix a little bit of the Sodalite Genuine and just put it in here. With a little bit of the quinacridone gold. I want it a little bit darker than that, so I'll just get a bit of a richer mix of the Sodalite. It looks pretty good. Okay, so where the branches are coming out from the trees, we can make them appear as though they are actually doing that by adding some shading. So this one here is behind, so I'm just going to shade in here a little bit to make it look as though it's behind. Whereas this one is coming from the front of the tree. This one here, again, a little bit of shading on the branch itself puts it behind. Just where the tree splits into two, I'm just shading behind. Now over this side, haven't got a lot of branches happening here, but we can make this one here in behind. We can actually help that by just giving ourselves some more branches. Deciding what's in front and what's behind. Just get a little bit of that Sodalite and just darken just in here. Just a bit of straight Sodalite, just darkening up a few of them, just touching. Just adding a few of the finer little branches to the trees. Trying to keep it very loose. Darkening up that a little bit so that it does appear as though it's running up the page. Where this one splits into two, just a little bit of shading again in there, deciding what's behind and what's in front. Putting some little back branches in, quite faint. Just using some of those marks that are already there. Okay, now I'm going to use a smaller brush. I've drawn in a bird just down here, which I'll work on a little bit while this glad wrap dries. So I've got a really strong mix of the Sodalite Genuine and just a really fine brush. It's an O round. This is just a silhouette of bird. Put these ravens in a lot of my paintings. Okay, when that's dry, I will give it another coat. I'll just let that dry a little bit longer and then I'll pop back to you with the final touches. Hi everyone, we're almost there. While I was off camera, I used a hairdryer and just dried off the rest of the bird and the little shady bits where I've done where the tree is got the branches growing out or in front where I shaded them. So now the next thing is to remove the glad wrap, which I'll do now. So I'm just peeling that back and you can see already we have some lovely foliage. Honestly, it doesn't need a lot doing to it, probably just a little bit of shadows here and there. So, and possibly you could use on the raised bits some oil pastel. So I might do that. So this is just a Holbein oil pastel. And I'm just going to use that on some of the areas with the tissue paper that's raised up to give it a highlight. So here we go. Using the side of the pastel rather than the point. So it's just picking up on the raised part of the tissue folds, adding another dimension to the work. I'll give you a real close-up of this in a moment. Also, with this experimental type of painting, you don't have to tell the full story. You can just indicate stories, and you know, the mind will make up for itself what it's looking at. So you don't have to paint every blade of grass. You don't have to paint every leaf or every twig. Isn't that beautiful? Now these pastels come in lots of colours. So if you wanted to use darker colours, you could. A little bit of a highlight up here. Now when the situation with the virus is over, I am going to be doing some workshops and some classes on experimental watercolours. That's exactly what I'm doing here, experimental watercolour techniques. So if you are interested in joining some of my classes or workshops, write a note, like and subscribe. Send me an email. My email address is i.recycle@yahoo.com. And join the classes. We have lots of fun. It's really wonderful to be able to work in an experimental way like this. I really don't think I can do anything else to improve this drawing. So I am going to give you some close-ups. This is the oil pastel technique I was talking about. Lots of the undergrowth happening. Isn't that just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous texture? Love it. Thanks for watching.